Teenage Groom's tragic fate, murdered after marrying 65-year-old Bridezilla. Welcome to Mr. Crime Tales. Today, we're taking you to Sedona, Arizona, a calm, peaceful town. But recently, this quiet place was shaken when the body of a 19-year-old was found under strange and disturbing conditions. This is the story of a young groom, an older bride, and a marriage that ended in tragedy. Alex Carter was a shy, quiet 19-year-old from the small town of Lakewood, Arizona. He had just graduated high school in May 2021. People knew him as the quiet kid who always had a guitar with him. While his friends were heading to college or starting jobs, Alex was still figuring out what he wanted to do. He loved music and dreamed of becoming a musician someday, though he didn't yet know how to get there. Alex lived with his mother, Lisa Carter, in a small trailer on the edge of town. They had little money, especially after Lisa lost her job during the pandemic. The pressure of their financial troubles weighed heavily on Alex, who felt responsible for helping his mom, who was in debt. Despite being shy, Alex had a big heart and was always willing to help others, even when he was struggling himself. A week before he died, Alex surprised everyone by marrying Joyce Mansfield, a 65-year-old retired heiress. Joyce was famous for her extravagant lifestyle and had been married several times before. She insisted on a big fancy wedding at a luxury resort in Sedona with expensive decorations, gourmet food, and a custom wedding dress. But Alex looked uncomfortable and out of place at the wedding, nervous about the whole thing. His marriage to the much older Joyce shocked everyone who knew him. Some people thought it was because of his mom's money troubles, while others worried Alex was being used. The unusual age gap was just one strange thing about Alex and Joyce's relationship. Joyce was demanding and controlling, often throwing fits if things didn't go her way. Alex felt more and more overwhelmed by her behavior. He even shared his worries with his mom, Lisa, but she encouraged him to stay in the marriage. Alex felt completely trapped in his new marriage. He was torn between trying to please his mom, Lisa, who wanted him to stick with it, and his own growing discomfort with his new life. By the time he passed away, Alex was still trying to adjust to everything. He had pulled away from his friends and spent nearly all his time at home with Joyce. His dream of becoming a musician felt more distant than ever, and he seemed lost, unable to see a clear future for himself. Then, on the morning of October 8, 2021, the quiet town of Sedona was rocked by a grim discovery. At 8:30 a.m., 82-year-old Marjorie Lane, a longtime neighbor, was out for her daily walk when she noticed something strange at Joyce Mansfield's luxurious home. The curtains were closed and the front door was slightly open. Marjorie, who had lived in the neighborhood for over 30 years, found this odd, especially since Joyce was known for her strict routine and usually kept everything in perfect order. Curious and worried, Marjorie decided to check on the house. As she got closer, she called out, but there was no answer. Hesitant but concerned, she stepped inside. Right away, a strong, bitter smell hit her, and then she saw him, Alex, lying still on the living room floor, slumped against the couch. Scattered around him were several empty pill bottles, all prescription medications. A half-empty glass of water sat on the coffee table next to him. Marjorie froze in shock, her heart racing. She had known Alex and couldn't believe what she was seeing. Fighting back tears, she pulled out her phone and dialed 911, her hands shaking as she gave the operator the address and explained what she had found. When the operator asked her to check for any signs of life, Marjorie hesitated but did as she was told. She knelt beside Alex, gently shook his shoulder, and called his name. There was no response. She could see his face was pale, his lips had a slight blue tint, and he wasn't breathing. Marjorie's mind raced. She remembered the wedding just a week earlier where Alex had looked so out of place, standing beside the much older Joyce in her elaborate wedding gown. She couldn't understand how things had gone so wrong so fast. Tears streamed down her face as she waited for help to arrive. Marjorie stayed on the line with the 911 operator until the police and paramedics arrived. When they got there, they quickly declared Alex dead at the scene. Marjorie, still in shock and deeply saddened, was gently led outside. She sat on the curb, staring blankly at the house where young Alex's life had come to such a tragic end. The police arrived at Joyce Mansfield's home just before 9:00 a.m. on October 8, 2021. Leading the investigation was Detective Sarah Kendall, a seasoned investigator with the Sedona Police Department, known for her sharp instincts and no-nonsense approach. Detective Kendall wasted no time assessing the scene, accompanied by Officer Ben Hughes, a young but eager recruit. Together, they entered the home that was now the center of a tragic mystery. The living room where Alex's body was found was eerily quiet. The luxurious furniture and stylish decor felt out of place next to the lifeless figure on the floor. Detective Kendall immediately noticed the empty pill bottles scattered around Alex and the half-empty glass of water on the coffee table. She examined the labels. They were prescriptions for medications like anti-anxiety and pain relief drugs, which are commonly linked to overdoses. The scene itself was oddly clean. There were no signs of a struggle, no furniture knocked over, no blood. It was almost too orderly, which raised red flags for Detective Kendall. The neatness suggested that whatever had happened, it wasn't the result of a sudden, chaotic event, but rather something more planned. Detective Kendall instructed Officer Hughes to start taking photographs of the scene while she called in a forensics team to dust for fingerprints and gather evidence. Soon after, the coroner, Dr. Evelyn Stone, arrived to examine the body. She confirmed that Alex had likely died from an overdose, but the high amount of drugs found was far above any safe dose, suggesting this wasn't an accident. As they continued their investigation, Detective Kendall's eyes were drawn to a small detail: a wedding photo of Alex and Joyce on the mantel. In the photo, Alex looked distant, his eyes cast downward, while Joyce beamed with a wide smile. It was a subtle but telling sign that things might not have been well in their new household. The forensics team carefully collected the pill bottles, the glass of water, and any other possible evidence. They also noticed a faint smell of perfume lingering in the air, which Detective Kendall recognized as a fragrance Joyce was known for, an expensive brand. By the time they finished, Detective Kendall had a strong sense that this was more than just an overdose. The evidence pointed to something more sinister. The investigation was only beginning. As they looked deeper into Alex's death, the police turned their attention to the most obvious suspect, Joyce Mansfield, Alex's 65-year-old wife. Joyce was a well-known figure in Sedona, infamous for her lavish lifestyle and over-the-top demands. Joyce Mansfield had a strong and demanding personality. Born into wealth, she had been married multiple times, each marriage ending in a bitter divorce. Joyce was obsessed with staying young and was notorious for her tantrums whenever things didn't go her way. Her reputation as a bridezilla was well-earned, as she expected nothing less than perfection from everyone around her. When Detective Sarah Kendall and Officer Ben Hughes arrived at Joyce's home later that afternoon, they found her lounging by the pool, only a few feet away from where her husband had died. Joyce was sipping a mimosa and flipping through the latest issue of Vogue. Despite the tragic situation, Joyce appeared unsettlingly calm. Dressed in a designer kaftan and oversized sunglasses, she gave off an air of indifference that immediately caught Detective Kendall's attention. Joyce greeted the officers with a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. When asked about the events leading up to Alex's death, she explained that she had gone to bed early the night before, leaving Alex in the living room to play his computer games. She claimed that when she woke up the next morning and didn't see him in bed, she assumed he had slept on the couch. She expressed some surprise and mild sadness upon hearing of his death, but her reaction seemed more like she'd heard about a distant acquaintance's passing rather than her husband's. During the questioning, Joyce's story remained steady, but her lack of emotion raised red flags. She was cooperative but distant, answering questions with a precision that felt rehearsed. When asked about the pill bottles found at the scene, Joyce said that Alex had been going through a tough time lately and had been prescribed medication to help him cope. She insisted she had no idea he might overdose and suggested that maybe Alex had taken too many pills in a moment of despair. Despite her calm demeanor, Detective Kendall noted a few inconsistencies in Joyce's story. For one, Joyce mentioned that Alex had been playing video games, yet the TV was off when Marjorie Lane found his body. Additionally, the bed in the master bedroom was untouched, which suggested that Joyce may not have gone to bed at all. The more Detective Kendall dug into Joyce's story, the more the pieces didn't quite fit. The more Detective Kendall questioned Joyce, the more it became clear that she was hiding something. However, without solid evidence, the police couldn't hold her. Joyce's alibi seemed airtight, but her behavior left a lingering doubt. As the interrogation wrapped up, Detective Kendall couldn't shake the feeling that this glamorous, composed woman was more involved in Alex's death than she was letting on. With Joyce still a prime person of interest, the police turned their attention to another suspect, Alex's mother, Lisa Carter. Lisa, 49, had endured a difficult life filled with hardship and poor choices, each one seemingly worse than the last. Deep in debt, Lisa had even started selling prescription drugs under the table, a secret she had managed to keep from most people, though not from everyone. She had been arrested a few times, and Detective Kendall knew that Lisa's desperation might have driven her to push Alex into this ill-fated marriage. After all, the union offered Lisa a lifeline out of her financial struggles, a chance at security she couldn't resist, no matter the cost. When the police brought Lisa in for questioning, she appeared anxious and frazzled, dressed in faded jeans and a worn t-shirt, a stark contrast to Joyce's polished look. Her hand shook as she lit a cigarette, a habit she had picked up again in recent months, and her voice wavered as she answered Detective Kendall's questions. Lisa admitted that she had encouraged Alex to marry Joyce, calling it an opportunity he shouldn't pass up. She spoke about the luxurious wedding in a fancy Sedona resort, where Alex had looked so out of place. Lisa claimed she only wanted the best for her son, believing Joyce could provide him and her with financial security, something she had never been able to offer. But when the conversation shifted to the drugs found at the scene, Lisa became defensive. She denied knowing anything about the large quantity of pills, insisting that Alex must have taken them himself or obtained them elsewhere. Detective Kendall wasn't convinced. Lisa's financial troubles, her involvement in illegal drug sales, and her desperation to secure her future all pointed to her possible involvement. Under pressure, Lisa's responses grew more erratic. She started to contradict herself, first saying she hadn't seen Alex in days, then later mentioning she had visited him the night before his death. Her nervousness and inconsistent statements only deepened the police's suspicions. Despite her denials, Lisa's connection to the drugs and her clear motive to make Alex's marriage work made her a prime suspect. Detective Kendall saw Lisa as someone cunning and ruthless, willing to do whatever it took to protect herself. Lisa's desperation was clear. She was willing to protect herself even if it meant sacrificing her own son. As her interrogation ended, the police felt closer to uncovering the truth, but crucial pieces of the puzzle were still missing. With both Joyce Mansfield and Lisa Carter under scrutiny, the investigation moved to a third suspect, Joyce's ex-husband, Henry Mansfield. At 70 years old, Henry was a wealthy real estate mogul with a reputation for ruthlessness in both business and his personal life. His latest venture, developing retirement communities across Arizona, was highly profitable and had further expanded his empire. Henry and Joyce had divorced only a few months before she married Alex, and the split had been messy and public, widely gossiped about in Arizona's high social circles. Joyce had walked away with a substantial portion of Henry's wealth, leaving him both humiliated and furious. The fact that she married a much younger man like Alex so soon afterward only added to Henry's resentment, making him a key suspect. Detective Sarah Kendall and Officer Ben Hughes decided to bring Henry in for questioning. When they arrived at his sprawling estate, they found him in his home office, surrounded by legal documents and architectural blueprints. Henry greeted them with a firm handshake, his demeanor calm and controlled, quite different from the nervous and agitated Lisa. He seemed almost as if he had been expecting their visit. During the interrogation, Henry was cooperative, but his answers were carefully measured. He admitted that he was angry about Joyce's new marriage, calling it a slap in my face. However, he denied having anything to do with Alex's death. Henry explained that he'd been focused on his business and had little contact with either Joyce or Alex since the divorce. When questioned about his whereabouts on the night of Alex's death, Henry provided a solid alibi. He claimed he was at a business dinner in Phoenix, meeting with potential investors, and several high-profile attendees could vouch for his presence, making it hard for the police to dispute his alibi. Despite his cooperation, Detective Kendall couldn't shake the feeling that Henry was hiding something. His calm, composed demeanor seemed almost too practiced, as if he carefully prepared his responses in advance. Detective Kendall couldn't shake the feeling that Henry was hiding something. His calm, measured responses seemed almost too practiced, as if he rehearsed them. Adding to the suspicion was the fact that witnesses had seen him arguing with Joyce just days before Alex's death. People reported a heated exchange between the two at a local country club, where Henry allegedly told Joyce she'd regret their divorce. While the police didn't have enough evidence to arrest him, Henry's possible motives, jealousy and revenge, kept him firmly in their sights. The investigation was far from over, and Detective Kendall knew they needed to dig deeper to uncover the truth. Then, on October 15, 2021, just as the investigation seemed to be slowing down, a critical new piece of evidence surfaced. It was a cool, sunny afternoon with clouds gathering over Sedona when Officer Hughes rushed into the station, holding a sealed envelope. It had been delivered anonymously that morning, raising immediate suspicion. Inside the envelope was a USB drive, and its contents were shocking. A series of text messages between Joyce Mansfield and an unknown contact, dated just days before Alex's death. The messages revealed Joyce's plan to divorce Alex and cut him out of her will, using her knowledge of Lisa Carter's illegal drug activities as leverage. The texts were filled with Joyce's frustration over Alex's sullen attitude and her impatience to be rid of him. One message read, "Sex with him is so dull," followed by another that mocked him with a crude comparison. In another chilling text, Joyce wrote, "If that Lisa thinks she's getting away with this, she's got another thing coming. I'll make sure she and that pathetic kid pay." These messages provided crucial insight into Joyce's mindset and intentions. It was now clear that she had been plotting to eliminate both Alex and Lisa from her life. The messages also hinted at a third party, someone helping Joyce gather information about Lisa's drug dealing. Detective Kendall and her team immediately began tracing the origins of these messages, soon discovering that the anonymous contact was one of Joyce's private investigators, someone she had hired to dig up dirt on Lisa. In the days leading up to her marriage with Alex, Joyce's private investigator had dug up Lisa's criminal history with drug dealing, providing Joyce with the ammunition she needed to carry out her plan. This new evidence painted a damning picture of Joyce as a manipulative, vengeful woman willing to do whatever it took to get what she wanted. It also raised serious questions about Lisa's role in Alex's death. Had Lisa discovered Joyce's intentions and acted out of desperation, or was she merely another pawn in Joyce's twisted scheme? With this fresh evidence, the police intensified their focus on both Joyce and Lisa. The investigation took on new urgency as the officers realized that the truth was far more tangled than anyone had initially suspected. Pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit, but the full story was still unclear. Then, on October 20, 2021, as the investigation reached a breaking point, Detective Kendall received a crucial breakthrough. After analyzing the text messages on the USB drive and cross-referencing them with phone records, it became shockingly clear. Lisa Carter, Alex's own mother, was behind the deadly plot. Driven by desperation and greed, Lisa had used her son as a pawn in her scheme. The police now had enough evidence to arrest her. Lisa, 49, had lived a life weighed down by debt and poor choices. She saw Alex's marriage to Joyce as her ticket out of financial trouble. Terrified that Alex, who was not interested in the relationship, might leave Joyce, Lisa feared her hopes of a steady flow of money would crumble. To keep Alex tied to Joyce, she had secretly been giving him prescription drugs and even enhancers to keep him compliant. But her plan took a tragic turn when Alex accidentally took more of the drugs than she'd intended, resulting in a fatal overdose. The twist was further complicated when it was revealed that Joyce, dissatisfied with Alex's lack of enthusiasm as a husband, had already been planning to divorce him. She intended to cut both Alex and Lisa out of her life, using Lisa's drug-dealing history as leverage to ensure they would get nothing. But Lisa, desperate to keep the marriage intact, took matters into her own hands. On the night of Alex's death, Lisa had given him a stronger dose of the drugs, hoping to calm him down, but Alex, distressed over his loveless marriage, took even more on his own, leading to his tragic overdose. Distraught over his loveless marriage and fearful of Joyce's vicious temper, Alex took even more pills on his own, leading to a fatal overdose. Though Lisa hadn't meant to kill her son, her actions directly caused his death. When the police confronted Lisa with the evidence, she initially denied everything, her demeanor panicked and frantic, a stark contrast to her earlier calm. But as Detective Kendall presented the damning text messages and phone records, Lisa's defenses crumbled. She claimed she never intended to kill Alex, only to keep him in the marriage long enough to secure their financial future. Lisa's arrest sent shockwaves through the small towns of Sedona and Lakewood. Alex's family was devastated by the revelation that his own mother had caused his death. The community, already unsettled by the strange circumstances surrounding the marriage, now faced the painful reality that greed and desperation had led to such a senseless loss. As Lisa was led away in handcuffs, she appeared numb, seemingly unable to fully grasp the gravity of her actions. The Carters, overwhelmed by grief, expressed sorrow and disbelief, struggling to accept what had happened. Lisa's arrest marked the end of a dark chapter in Sedona's history, but the pain and shock would linger for a long time. Lisa's trial began in early December 2022, drawing crowds of reporters from outlets like the Arizona Republic and True Crime Weekly, all eager to cover the shocking details. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Mark Christensen, 42, painted Lisa as a manipulative and desperate woman who had put her own financial needs above her son's life. Known for his sharp intellect and relentless pursuit of justice, Christensen argued that Lisa's actions were premeditated and driven by greed. He pointed to the text messages, phone records, and Lisa's confession as irrefutable proof of her guilt. On the defense side, public defender Carita Vasquez, 28, portrayed Lisa as a troubled mother who had made a terrible mistake. Vasquez, known for her compassionate approach, argued that Lisa never intended to kill Alex. She emphasized Lisa's financial struggles, her desperation to secure a better future for her family, and that Alex's death was ultimately accidental. Vasquez appealed to the jury's sympathy, urging them to consider Lisa's difficult circumstances and the pressure she was under. Throughout the trial, Alex's family watched in agony. Lisa's actions had torn their family apart, and her pain was clear in their tearful expressions. The prosecution's case was strong, but the defense's argument for leniency struck a chord with some jurors. On December 15, 2022, the jury delivered its verdict. Lisa Carter was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. The jury concluded that while Lisa's actions had caused Alex's death, there wasn't enough evidence to prove she had intended to kill him. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read, with Lisa showing little reaction, her face pale and expressionless. The judge sentenced her to 10 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 5 years. The sentence received mixed reactions. Some felt it was too lenient for the tragic loss of Alex's life, while others believed it was fair, considering Lisa's desperation. Some people felt Lisa's sentence was too lenient, considering the tragic loss of Alex's life, while others thought it was fair given her desperate situation. For Alex's family, the verdict offered little comfort. They were left grappling with the painful reality that their loved one was gone, taken by the very person meant to protect him. The town of Sedona also struggled to process the disturbing events that had unfolded. It was a harsh reminder of how greed and desperation could lead to unthinkable actions. In the months following Lisa Carter's sentencing, the impact of the case continued to echo deeply within the Sedona community. The trial had left a lasting mark on everyone, from the Carter family to local residents. Lisa was sent to the Arizona State Prison Complex in Perryville, a high-security facility near Phoenix. In prison, she faced a challenging environment. Her case had drawn a lot of media attention, and she became a subject of gossip and judgment among the other inmates. The prison system offered her limited opportunities for rehabilitation and support, leaving her to reflect on the tragic consequences of her actions. Lisa spent her time participating in prison programs focused on substance abuse and mental health issues, hoping to find some form of redemption and prepare for her eventual release. Meanwhile, despite the lingering pain, life in Sedona gradually returned to normal. The town held a memorial for Alex at a local park, attended by friends, family, and community members who wished to honor his memory. The event included live music and heartfelt speeches celebrating Alex's life and dreams. It was a somber reminder of the young man whose life was cut short and gave the community a chance to come together to support one another. As the media coverage of the case eventually faded, making way for new stories and events, the impact of Alex's death and the subsequent trial continued to serve as a poignant reminder of the devastating consequences of desperation and greed. The tragic events of October 2021 left a lasting mark on everyone they touched.